Oh,
Okay.
it's fascinating.
No, I don't want AI compare. Okay.
Oh, do you want to do subtitles? Can we do that
I have no idea. I
just
think
for
it
accessibility?
depends on the St. Mark's package.
Show captions.
Yeah, why not?
It might work.
Okay. Let's see how that works.
Mhm.
So today we're going to talk about code switching. And you might be asking, what is code switching? So let's dive right in. What is code switching? Code switching is the action of shifting between two or more languages or between dialects or registers of a language. Like the tone or pitch of how we're talking, for instance, within a discourse, especially in response to a change in social context. So we can refer to this as situational code switching, changing how we're talking and behaving based on the social context. And this is affected by a lot of social factors like class, religion, gender, race, age, and other things. Um, so the way that I've structured this is a little bit more interactive. So what I'm going to do is stop the share and we'll watch this first video. If I can figure that
I
out.
think if you just do share your entire screen, it will flip back between the two.
Here, entire screen.
Maybe no.
For now, I'll just do that.
Okay.
Ah,
Hit escape button.
yeah, I have to escape from this.
Escape.
Okay. So, this explains a little bit of what code switching is, and it gets into.
We all code switch, but some examples are more effective than others.
Okay, let's be real honest. Obama would not be president if he didn't know how to effectively code switch.
Obama.
He's really adept at reading his audience.
Wagwan, Jamaica.
And then putting forth an American English that they can relate to.
So what is code switching?
Okay, so code switching, let's keep it really simple. Code, so we can think language, and switching, so going back and forth between one language and another, or one dialect and another.
Meet Professor Renee Blake.
I am an associate professor in the Department of Linguistics at New York University. I'm also in the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis and the Director of Africana Studies.
Say that 3 times fast.
Oh, you're funny. Code switching is the norm for all of us. So if you just think about whether it's a formal situation versus an informal situation, we're going to be code switching. Usually people think of it in terms of language. So here I am speaking, and I'm speaking not only with words, but I'm also speaking with my face, I'm speaking with my hands.
But code switching often has higher stakes for Black people.
I think it's clear why Black people specifically feel the need to code switch.
This is Taryn Finley. She's the editor of HuffPost Black Voices.
Our Blackness isn't accepted in a lot of spaces that are critical for our success and our survival. A lot of times we have to dilute and we have to put on a mask.
It's a bigger leap for someone who speaks African American English versus someone who speaks a language that is closer to mainstream English, the language of those in power.
But when a Black person can't effectively code switch, the result can be catastrophic. The 2013 George Zimmerman trial was a painful reminder of that fact. He was charged with second-degree murder in the shooting of Trayvon Martin. Rachel Gentile was the prosecution's star witness and a close friend of Martin's.
And when she testified, she was not code switching.
I asked him how the man looked like. He looked like a creepy ass cracker.
She took the stand, and it became clear that the public wasn't judging the facts of her story. They were judging her language.
I don't think she came across as brutally honest. I think she comes across as brutally ignorant. Every time she opens her mouth, her credibility gets chipped away and chipped away.
Ultimately, Zimmerman walked free. But the ability to code switch isn't always enough to avoid disaster. Case in point, Sandra Bland. Bland was stopped for failing to signal a lane change.
Oh, you seem very irritated.
I am. I really am.
She's speaking a form of standard or mainstream English.
Step out of the car.
But yet, the conversation escalates and goes badly very quickly.
Drag me out of my own car.
Get out of the car.
And then you
I will light you up. Get out.
Wow.
Now.
Wow.
Get out of the car.
For a failure to signal. You're doing all of this for
Get over there.
And so here what I think is happening, and what we seem to understand, is that there's something about the Black expression that is different or can be misconstrued.
Despite her ability to code switch, Bland was arrested. She was later found dead in her jail cell.
Our Blackness inherently says trouble in a lot of white spaces and a lot of public spaces. That's why so many people feel threatened and want to call the cops when they see a Black person doing something as benign as waiting for a business meeting to start in Starbucks.
So it sounds like racism is the root cause of all of this.
We haven't, as a country, confronted racism and really got into the roots of why we code switch, why we feel like we have to straighten our hair in order to get a job, even if we don't want to.
That concerns me, because I think the Black body is like every other body, a beautiful body, and should be loved and respected, and not feel anxiety as you walk through the world on a daily basis. I know I feel that anxiety, because I do want to be accepted by the world in which I live.
Code switching can help Black people navigate white spaces. But at the end of the day, it's not enough to overcome racism.
Code switching and respectability politics don't protect us all the time. We're still Black.
Okay. So that gives a good overview. Is there any reaction to the video, or
It's just so sad. I mean, those examples are specifically very sad. And the way it plays, the fact of code switching does and does not play into outcomes. It's just a sad situation.
I'm gonna lighten the mood just a teeny tiny bit because that was super, super heavy. So another example that is really sweet of code switching is when you talk to like your pet, because technically, like some of the stuff you say and the voice you use to talk to them is different than like what you do
For
to
sure.
talk to like adults. And so that is an example of what I know, because if people are like, oh, I'm not familiar, I don't do code switching.
Right.
You do.
Everybody does.
If you talk to like a child in like a baby voice and you're code switching.
Hello.
hello? Oh, not at all. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anybody out there who's like, oh no, I don't code switch, that's some woke BS or whatever. Like, you code switch when you go from talking to your grandma to talking to your best friend. Like, that's code switching too. Sorry if you're gonna get to stuff like that.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And she said at the beginning of the video, like everyone does it. Everyone code switches. It's just for different people. It's more of like, it carries more of a like,
Higher stakes.
yeah, higher stakes. Thank you.
I guess I didn't know what code switching was, so I guess I do it because I communicate with a lot of people. So,
Yeah, yeah.
In different ways. Yeah. I didn't know there was a name for it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And we kind of don't always think about it, to like put the name to it. All right, so before we dig into it a little bit more, it's important to look at the topic intersectionally. So intersectionality, we might all know, means that there is a complex interaction between identities and unequal power relations that structure our experience in diverse, often contradictory ways. So these don't operate in a hierarchy, and they inflect and infuse each other in complex ways. This was a theory developed by Kimberly Crenshaw and built on existing Black feminist ideas. And here's a quote. Language is more than a system and principles allowing speakers to make grammatical and communicative meanings. Rather, it is performed through a confederation of available and overlapping social experiences. In other words, our social experiences shape our language and how our identities are performed. So here's an example of intersectionality. It's a comic from this book called Queer, A Graphic History, which is chock full of theoretical stuff and interesting. So the person on the left says, my white working class community assumed that everyone would get married and have kids, but it also had space for more masculine women like me. So the person on the right has a different experience where they say, I'm already harassed because of my race and gender. How much worse could it be if I came out as bi? So here we have these different parts of our identity that are adding to the way that we experience the world in different ways. For some, it's more, it creates more conflict than for others. And, you know, we don't always, unless we examine that, we don't always see how those all work together. So how does code switching manifest in queer communities? Some folks feel that they need to correct the way that they speak. And so this first example is from a documentary called Do I Sound Gay? It's by David Thorpe. And as we watch it, I just want you to, I'm just going to show you a clip from it. And I just want you to think about how it's making you feel and what message he's receiving from both society and the voice therapist that he's interacting with. So as I prepare this clip, let me just say the premise of the film is that he has become aware of, oh yeah, sorry, thank you. He has become aware of the ways in which society, or he perceives society views him. And he becomes concerned about the way that he sounds. And so he's decided to go to a voice therapist. This is very early in the documentary when he's trying to analyze how he's speaking. So that's the context.
Willem Dafoe, Gregory Hines, James Gandolfini, the great Joey McIntyre from Kids on the Block, and of course Tony Danza. Well, this room is definitely very reassuring that I couldn't be getting better help. Although it does make me feel like I'm learning how to act. Hi, how are you?
Hi, David. I'm Susan Sankin.
Thanks
Nice
so
to
much.
meet you.
Yeah, you too.
We're going to go this way.
Okay, great.
So as you and I are speaking, I'm going to be doing a phonetic analysis of your speech. Just speak the way you typically would as if you were speaking to a friend.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, so I hope I talk normally,
Okay.
but I'm sure I will. So, yeah, I mean, as I've mentioned to you on the phone, I hate the way I talk. I'm a little mystified as to why I talk the way I talk. It's almost like my voice shuts down when I'm nervous, particularly if I have fear about just making myself visible as a gay person. Like, all of this sort of stops moving.
Okay, people code switch a lot. So if you see perhaps a young little girl who's 3 years old playing with a doll, well, when it's time for that doll to go to bed, they use their parent voice, they lower their pitch, they use the stern voice. So what happens sometimes is when people do a lot of code switching, they get bogged down in it and they forget what they used to sound like or what the opposite side was.
I've never really thought about it that way as just being a part. We do so much code switching and I feel like I'm all over the map and sometimes their voice comes out one way and sometimes it comes out the other way and I'm like, what's my real voice? I will confess I'd love to like learn how to sound straight. Like I think that just a normal, unremarkable way of talking, like it'd be nice to be able to speak like that.
All right, I have a great picture of what's going on with your speech
Okay,
and
good.
also what you hope to accomplish.
Okay.
So what I hear is a little bit of nasality.
I feel like I sound so nasal and so many other gay men sound incredibly nasal. And like, I think it's one reason people find too many gay voices at once kind of grating because of that nasality. So.
Yeah, you do a lot of upspeak. You always end up, even if you're making a statement, you're ending up here. Sometimes it's the holding on to speech. Phone, so, alone, no. Okay, you just hang on that. So we're going to keep it short. So just try Oklahoma,
Oklahoma,
ocean,
ocean.
au gratin.
You
Au
threw me-
gratin, I'm French, okay?
You threw me with that one.
Okay, sorry. Au gratin.
And au gratin.
Good. I see that your work really lies in terms of your rhythm and intonation, the sing-song pattern, and in finding the voice that's comfortable for you, that will work for you, so that you can code switch, but volitionally, so that you're not getting stuck. You have a go-to voice.
I would love a go-to voice.
All right?
Excellent. Thank
It
you
was a
so
pleasure,
much.
David.
Yeah. You know, when she showed me how I speak, when she showed me how my O sounds, like, oh, I don't think that's really particularly how I want my O's to sound. I don't know that anybody really wants their O's to sound that way. Oakling, Oakum, Oatmeal, Oaxacan, Obang. Nice. The obese ogre owes Mrs. O'Malley some oatmeal. Harry married Carrie and committed harakiri.
Okay. So how about our feelings on that? Because this, for me, when I saw this, it brought up a lot of thoughts about, I don't know. I don't want to taint your reaction. What do you think?
Well, I can only relate to it in as much as I go to Canada a lot, I end up speaking Canada. I guess that's a little bit, I mean, they speak differently, they say things differently. So I've been there so many times that that's maybe not a good analogy, but that's where I do it the most, I guess.
Do you have thoughts?
I have several thoughts.
Me too, but you go first.
So, the thought that I had that does relate to Chris, what you said is that you start to speak Canada, which is the whole thing of like trying to assimilate to the dominant culture.
Absolutely.
So when I saw this clip, which was earlier than everyone else, because I saw it at home, I felt really sad because he seems really self-hating and very judgmental of like gay people. I don't know why I used air quotes. But like sounding gay, which is like really sad. And then the pressure to like conform to the dominant straight culture and the fact that he like directly said, I want to sound straight and not gay. I felt very sad.
Yes, my reactions are very similar. And like also the fact that like this apparently very this speech therapist with such credentials, like it is considered a legitimate part of her business to like stop someone from sounding gay if they want to, strikes me as like a very odd business model and very odd like mental health and I guess physical health wise and very kind of akin in a way to like conversion therapy, not as extreme of course, but like if the whole idea is like there is something about you that is intolerable or it is not up to snuff societally, we've got to change that. And I get the like he's going to her, and I'm like, shouldn't blame her so much for like what he's coming to her as a patient. But like, she couldn't have been like, let's work on your like self-acceptance. Have you been to a therapist? Like, that's another way you could go. Instead of like, okay, let's beat the gay out of your vocal cords. Because like, there's not, the only thing wrong with that voice is what society has deemed wrong with it. And that makes me sad.
One other thing too that the therapist said is that she's like empowering him to code switch like of his own choice. So it's almost like she's teaching him to put on a character so that he is pretending to conform more effectively.
Yeah, teaching him to pass.
To act.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, like
how
you
he
said,
said in
yeah,
the
that's
beginning,
funny.
like all these actors are here, I feel like I'm gonna learn how to act.
So it's completely devoid of any sort of self-acceptance. It's like I have to be a character.
On another level, which maybe we don't get into this now or in this at all, but like it is fascinating to me that like there is such thing as gay voice. I don't know if does the movie get into like where that comes from and why at all.
To be honest, I didn't watch the whole
Okay,
thing,
I'm very interested.
but
I have a
it is
theory.
on YouTube. So.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and I did what I thought was incredibly mind-blowing theory that came to me as Peter was presenting the draft of this. And shall I share it now?
You're welcome to.
So I thought
Pulls down the
a second presentation within a presentation. No, tell me if this makes sense. To tell me if the logic of this is sound, because I'm just like this just kind of came. A lot of people who were very famous in old Hollywood were closeted gay men, and there is a certain way of speaking that is of the theater that I think a lot of what is considered the gay voice, it's like very theatrical.
Interesting.
And so is it kind of modeled after old Hollywood because coincidentally they all happened to be gay?
That's an interesting theory.
Just
And like sort of a social replication
Yeah, yeah.
happened down. Because like as I was talking about that, I felt myself slipping into my version of gay voice, which is a little more upbeat. I can't just do it, but
Yeah.
like I felt myself doing it.
Yeah.
So like you're not like choosing to do it, but if you hear like
Mhm.
that's either a role model or probably more in the case of a guy like this who's kind of self-hating, just like this sort of feeling of like, well, that's what I'm supposed to be, so I'm just gonna like slide into it. It's very interesting how that's possible.
Yeah.
just a theory though. I'm sure there's an article about it.
I'm sure. Maybe that movie
Several.
talks more about it. I would be interested to watch it for a LGBTQ movie night.
Yeah.
That would be, or like a special event so that we can have debrief and discussion
Yeah.
after.
For sure.
So this next clip is maybe gets a little bit more into the intersectional elements, but these are this is a group of queer men discussing the same topic.
Welcome back to our discussion. We're going to start with code switching in America. Now, I wanted you to lead with that again, Trey.
I do not code switch.
Okay.
I believe that code switching is for people who are unsure of themselves and not confident in who they are. I remember when I first started my journey in corporate America, I was one of those people. If I went to lunch with a boss or colleagues from work, I love buffalo wings. But because I was with white people, I would get a salad. And it wasn't until I was really confident in who I was and what I brought to the table that the same white people I go to lunch with or a boss or anybody, and I said, I'll have the wings. And I don't think about, do they think about all black people?
So that's not necessary anymore for you.
No, because I order wings and I say, some stereotypes is just for a reason.
Somebody else, code switching.
I think code switching is fine. I mean, I feel like in my life, I feel like I have to do it just on a freelance base.
You said you feel like you have to do it?
I have to do it. And I say that because, you know, even if I'm in a room full of straight as LGBTQ individual, right? If I'm in a room full of a bunch of men, certain conversations I wouldn't have, certain things I wouldn't do. Now, straight men. Now, if I was in a room full of a bunch of corporate America, I would have to switch how I act, how the certain things I do. And I only say that because for me, it has highlighted different opportunities for me, in a sense.
Okay.
And I would say also, I was able to better understand each individual of other races, other ethnic backgrounds. A lot of the times people say, hey, code switch, we were not being ourselves, but this I feel like I am being myself because yet I'm having a conversation, but it's certain things that's not appropriate for this certain moment. And a lot of times people confuse code switching with being yourself.
I think that's what you're doing right now.
I think
You're
it's a
confusing
character
it.
because that's so. Me personally, I used to code switch, but that's why I work for myself now, so I don't have to do it anymore. Like when
So you don't have to do it anymore.
No, hell no. Because when in my last corporate job, in compliance, in those meetings, we be talking about dumb shit. And I got frustrated one time, and it was probably my last time. I was on my way out the door from there, and I was like, "We had this conversation already."
Well, you
Why are we doing
guys,
this again?
I'm
But
hearing.
code switching would have required me to. Yeah.
But this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing from Trey. I'm hearing from you, Francois, that I do not do code switching because of what? What is the bottom line of why you don't do code switching anymore?
Why am I changing myself to make you comfortable?
Is it a negative thing? Why is the code switching negative?
Why do I need to change my authentic self to make a white person feel comfortable in my presence?
And then why
don't get shot while you're jogging?
No, but then if I'm in your
Go ahead, Jeremy. Let me hear from you.
It's unfortunate, but it is the truth.
And everybody want to code switch and do it because of the opportunity. No, fuck that. If I lose my job because you don't like this, then oh well.
But you can take that back to slavery because I'm guaranteed the slaves did not act the same way in front of master like they did with the rest of the
And so is that a form of code switching?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I'm going to go and fetch the water. And then when they get back to the shed, they be like, that motherfucker, I'm so sick of these white ass. You know what I'm saying? There has to be certain types of switching.
Your life and your job is
to keep you alive.
You need to define what code switching is. And code switching is not. Code switching is an individual choice.
Choice.
It's an individual choice, and it may not mean the same thing to everybody.
It doesn't apply to life. It doesn't apply to your life.
Let me bring this up.
Because you don't want to
not knowing how to code switch be detrimental?
Yes.
Can it be detrimental?
Depends on the situation.
Wait 1 second. 1 second. We're gonna have some order.
I think it depends on the situation. I think, like Jeremy said, when it comes to protecting yourself and making sure you don't get shot, if a police officer pulls you over, I think it's very important to be respectful.
That's not
and
code
that's not code switching.
That's a bad
But I think it's important to be respectful and be polite or whatever the case may be if the situation warrants it. But if I'm at a job, if I have to change the way my voice sounds naturally to sound like a Caucasian, shouldn't have to do that to fit into the company.
Or deep. Okay. It could be deep too. It don't have to be like towards like acting as a particular race. It could be like, okay, I'm in a room and I don't want my voice to be so high. So I have to be like, hey, how are you, sir?
Okay.
Right.
It's more appropriate. It's more respectful. Hey, how are you?
Chesra, you have something to say?
Just to me, it doesn't seem organic.
I agree with what Ace is saying. We have to define what it is for what is code switching.
He said individual one.
Because we can't confuse professionalism with being who we are.
Right.
We can't confuse the two. Now it's a difference when I'm at my job, I'm being a professional, than being at my job and being the social norm of what a police officer is or what it is that these white people want me to be as a police officer. Me, I would not say code switching with the example that he used. Because then I'm going to look at it and say, well, why the fuck should I have to change who I am as far as the way that I speak, the way that I act, the way that I carry myself to make that police officer comfortable?
Yeah. I'm gonna go to Ace before we go to Francois.
Well, the
I'm gonna go to Ace before we go to Francois.
He addressed me.
Everybody's still getting heard.
So I'm responding to me then.
I think at the end of the day, before you even get to the code switching, Black men in particular, we need to have a foundation of who we are. And when we have that foundation of who we are, we can walk into any space. And it doesn't have to be a code switch. It doesn't have to be either or. You can walk in and be your authentic self and know that you have the ancestors with you who had paved the way for you to walk into those spaces. So it's really getting to have conversations. That's why these type of conversations, even if it's comical and it's painful and it's passionate, we are Black men coming together. This is where we find our healing and find ourselves. And we lead with a stronger dynamic. But you don't have to code switch. Our encouragement is at this point is to pass on what we've been taught to our young people so they know who they are. They're not defined by rap.
When are they gonna
Not defined by what your white co-workers think of you, not defined by what the pastors are preaching, turn the other cheek, all that type of nonsense. You know, when you have an authentic presence of who you are, mind, body, and soul, again, you can walk into any spaces, and code switching is not even.
But when you know, that's the issue, when you know who you are. And sometimes it becomes confusing because you don't even know yourself.
Exactly, because
I want you to follow us on our YouTube channel at Outpour LGBTQ Productions.
That was a fascinating conversation.
That was interesting. I wish, unrelated, I wish I had even a fraction of the self-confidence and charisma of the first speaker.
Yeah. His reactions to the other speakers were funny.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, tell me if this makes sense, because I think the video highlighted the complexity of the conversation about code switching when you're considering it from an intersectional lens. But is code switching you pretending or playing a character, or is it that we're all full of different characters and we're just pulling them out as we need them? So like, rather than pretending to be something you're not, we're all a huge amount of things, and we pick and choose which of our version of ourselves is the most appropriate for the situation.
Yeah, I definitely felt the tension between those two ways of looking at it, and was like waiting for each piece of that to come through, and they pretty much did. And like, I wonder if it can seem more like a self-betrayal to have to bring out the character because you feel like it's the one you need to appease some part of what's going on in the world around you. Like there might be more there might be like the sensitivity around that might be more than like I can understand with the ways that I code switch right now. If it's the gentleman who was very passionate about not code switching and he's going to eat the chicken wings no matter what now. Like it felt like he saw it was like a deep point of like personal, like it was important to him as a person to not be seen as someone who switches between those characters, whether or not he would agree with your view of what code switching means. So that's very interesting.
Did you want to say something?
Well, it's for me, I don't know the language in terms of when, like when we were having the book thing and everybody introduced themselves as, who they were, and I didn't know how I should do that. And so when you don't understand what the language is or what people are, what you should say, it's really awkward for me, and I know like I'm trying to like really learn, and then it's like, then what do I do?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here. But it just felt like, okay, should I do this or this, or, and I get like panicky. Panicky isn't a word. There's anxiety, I guess. What if I do this? I'm gonna look stupid. Sort of like, because I don't want to come across that way, and I don't want to come across ignorant, but there's things I don't know.
Sure.
And so what they said is I can only be my authentic self.
Right.
And be honest with be honest with where I'm at and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that type of situation, asking questions just goes a long way, and just being honest, like, how do I introduce myself appropriately or whatever?
I mean, I didn't know. I looked at Mary Kay and I don't know what she said, but it was just, I want to be comfortable in who I am and my authentic self. And I don't think I am, because I don't know the I don't know the verbiage, I guess, or I don't know how to behave, or I don't know. Does this make any sense of what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it's different spaces have different spoken and unspoken expectations, and more often probably unspoken. It's a very kind of new thing in like our society and like in certain elements of it where like we even stop to like name the expectations or the invitations for how to relate to the people around you. And so like it's not unusual to be in like a social justice space where they will like make those things clear. Like, okay, so share your name, your pronouns, your accessibility needs, and they'll make that very explicit because they recognize that there might be new people in that space who don't know about it. And I think like I like to imagine that like QC Compass and FLXJP and stuff, we try to be a welcoming environment for people. We want people to come in and interface with us and join us and be, bring what they have to us and take away what we have with them. We could probably be more explicit with expectations about like simple things like introductions to make sure people don't feel left out or left behind by those moments.
I didn't feel left out or left behind. I just felt like I don't know what to do.
Right, and that's
I mean, I felt like, well, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do this? Or, that happened in a manner of like a minute.
Yeah. And sometimes I think what my practice has tended to be, and tell me if there's different practices or whatever, but kind of like that example setting kind of a thing. So I always try to start introduction times with like, I'll name my pronouns. I'm trying to remember to include accessibility needs because I really love that practice too. I forget about it a lot. So like you can't go wrong by like following the example of the person or people before you, but also like I don't want anybody to feel like they have to do something. Like there's no in a space like ours at least, and we can't speak about other kinds of spaces, but in I want people to know that in our spaces there's no litmus test or gotcha waiting in the wings if you get it wrong or whatever.
Right.
I feel accepted. I just don't, I don't feel like I'm doing it right. So I give myself a hard time.
So I don't think there is really any right or wrong. I mean, if you came in and slapped us all across the face with a wet halibut, that would probably be wrong, but I don't think you're going to do that.
Can I say one more thing too?
Sure.
I think,
Excuse me.
so the person who was very staunchly anti-code switching, I think inherently, I feel like I agree. I think where we currently are in the world, that's not possible. But if you like dissect it down to like its root elements, because they were like, there's a difference between code switching and professionalism. Professionalism is the dominant culture imposing expectations onto you. So I think the sad thing is we're not at a place in society where we can abandon code switching, but I agree that we shouldn't have to do it because like the thing that really annoys me is like make students dress up when they come to presentations.
Yeah.
No, that's stupid. Some students don't have the money to afford those types of clothes, and how you are dressed plays no bearing on your ability to do your homework or do an assignment effectively.
Yeah.
And how people talk, regardless of the language that they're using, if you're conveying your point effectively, and again, conveying your point effectively in some ways, I'm biased because I have a idea of what that looks like based on the dominant and oppressive like culture. But if you're conveying a point effectively, the type of like language that you're choosing to use shouldn't matter. But I just don't think we're there as a society yet.
Yeah.
But people should be their authentic selves because that's beautiful and it's cool and amazing.
And so do you think that with your image of like we have all these characters inside of us and code switches is bringing one out when it feels like that's the right one to do, can they be inauthentic parts of ourselves?
So here's the thing. As of right now, this moment in time, I don't necessarily know which like school I fall into of code switching is a fake character or code switching is pulling out the version of you that you need in the moment. I don't currently know which I ascribe to. Both of them make sense, but I think I lean more towards we can be complex, but we are one self, and we should just be that regardless of the situation, and we shouldn't feel the need to hide or edit for the situation, because when is it not appropriate for you to be your authentic self? There should be no circumstance in society where you can't be your authentic self. But we're not there yet, obviously. But that's ultimately, you should be able to be your full authentic self at all times in all situations. I don't know. This is heavy stuff.
It is. It's very interesting though. I
All
like
right,
it.
so one more clip, and then I want to discuss a little bit of some theory. Exciting.
Yeah.
All right, this is a little bit of a shorter one.
The library is open. Code switch. I don't know, it sounds kind of spy-like. What is it?
Code switching means being able to change tonality and your vocabulary and the way you address certain communities and different audiences.
Act one way with this group and then act another way with a different group. I think a lot of it's for safety as far as queer people go. Like, am I gonna get glocked here in a bad way?
Queer people, trans people, people of color often code switch from one community or one room to the next.
It is going from talking in a way that would be easily understood by your queer sisters to, you know, the sort of speech that you use among straight people at work.
For Black people, for example, I might talk in one particular way with like my family or my friends, but when I go into the office, you know, I clean it up. I stopped code switching a long time ago, honey.
When I code switch, I don't feel safe expressing as my authentic self. And then I feel like I have to either minimize my expression in some way to make it more digestible for whatever space I'm in. So it's like I'm a chameleon. I just kind of try to blend in to whatever my surroundings are so that I don't get hurt.
Here's an example of code switching. One day, I wear no makeup, put on a white ribbed tank top, put on a scowl, and kind of do like a strut on the street with my combat boots on. And then the next day, come out dressed like this and be all like, hey, that's code switching.
Ooh, code switching is something that I refuse to do anymore. If I feel like I'm the only Black person in the room, or Black queer person in the room, I have to code switch to make sure my other cis het white counterparts feel as comfortable as possible with me. And I think that's what code switching is, making other people who have more power feel comfortable instead of you just being yourself and showing up exactly who you are.
Yeah, I think I definitely do that. But you know what? It's always nice to find a place where you can be yourself.
Gay, 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 gay. Gay.
And I love the theme song at the end. So that was sort of more of an introduction as to what code switching is, but I put it at the end because I thought it was interesting contrast with the previous one. And yeah, part of me just felt like different people have different definitions of what code switching is. Like for that one example of the person talking about how they dressed and go out on the street, to me, that doesn't technically fall under code switching because it, but then I thought about it and does the clothing that we wear say something? Is it speaking to people in some way? Is it a type of language that we're expressing ourselves with? And that kind of intrigued me. And I wondered what we thought about that part.
I think everything we do outside of our heads is a form of language that expresses something to someone else who's going to receive it in some way.
Yeah.
And how we choose to do that is so, and I'm still struggling with like a difference between code switching and just like contextual behavior. And it's like some of these speakers seem to be conflating the two, and some seem to have them kind of separate. And like, I feel like you can still like be yourself while choosing not to like drop all the F-bombs in front of grandma, but being comfortable doing that in front of friends. So like, is that code switching, or is that just choosing behavior for context? And I also get the thing about like choosing to do that not out of any like desire for like actual respect, but because you have to, because it's what white middle America has decided is appropriate for that situation. Like maybe in like a perfectly like platonic world, it shouldn't matter whether we drop F-bombs at work, and that's just something that like respectable society has decided. And I'm using that F-bombs as an example, as if that's like a thing that people organize their lives around, but I understand it's like much more complicated and stuff than that. But like, but it seems like some of those speakers were doing that too. Like they were taking individual aspects of behavior and choosing whether or not to do them openly in certain contexts and saying that was code switching. Whereas I would say, like, are you choosing to hide your blackness because of a circumstance? Are you choosing to hide your queerness because of a circumstance? That feels much more like the question of code switching to me. Sorry, I got off from your question a little bit, but I'm
that's
working through these thoughts in real time.
It's a lot. I feel like I can feel my brain like churning through it.
It's a lot to think about. So I do have some other discussion questions at the end, but I wanted to get into a little bit of some theory.
Can I say one more thing about the clothing thing, since I did get us off track of that question? Is drag code switching?
That's a good question. Oh, one thing that I thought of as well, wearing different styles because that's who you are as a person is not the same as like not allowing your goth granddaughter to wear her outfit to church because you're like embarrassed.
Right.
So like if you're like not dressing like who you are authentically are, I just imagine, because I feel like the goth subculture has like a very distinctive style of dress. If you are not able to like exist in society in that style because you'll feel unsafe or not taken seriously, and then you like tone that down, that to me is code switching as it relates to like
the
personal
negative
style.
form of code switching. Yeah, for sure.
Another point actually before I move on to some theory is I found this paper, and the fact that there's an academic paper written about RuPaul's Drag Race and the language that they use on it is fantastic. It's incredibly readable. So if you are a nerd like me and you want to dig into it, it's called You Know She Didn't Have No Country, Code Switching and Performing Sass on RuPaul's Drag Race. But it raises a few interesting questions, and it talks about especially code switching to African American English by drag queens on RuPaul's Drag Race, often drag queens that are white. And this raises some questions about it, code switching can potentially be problematic. Is switching into a dialect that isn't yours naturally, I guess, a question of cultural appropriation at that point? Like, are you taking something, are you becoming something that you are not? And is that a problem? And it's a question that I don't want to, I'm just throwing it out there to think about. I don't know if we have too much time to get into it, but it is a question that I think is worth thinking about going forward.
Yeah.
All right. So some theory. Here we have Michel Foucault. I think I'm saying that right. And the quote at the top says, "Do not ask me who I am, and do not ask me to remain the same." And Foucault had this idea about what's called what is known as the panopticon. The panopticon is a prison with a tower in the middle and cells all around an outer circle. I'm going to flip to the next slide real quick and show you a picture. So you can see there's this tower in the middle, and all around in a circle are cells. And this is a real type of prison that existed in history. And he used basically what that means is at any one time the guard that's in the center can look out into any cell. And because of this, the prisoners begin to monitor their own behavior, because they don't know when the guard is going to be looking at them. So this idea, Foucault linked with the high degree of surveillance that we now have in much of the world, meaning that we could actually, most of the time, be watched or recorded. So this was sort of a metaphor for contemporary society. And we also kind of saw an example of this played out in that David Thorpe clip at the beginning with the linguist in the linguist's office, because you get this sort of self-monitoring that happens where you're starting to analyze and sort of chip apart how you behave, how you speak, and it can be disorienting. The metaphor of the panopticon, people are so aware of various critical gazes upon them that they end up self-monitoring through fear that they may not be acceptable to others. And this is developed into a culture where everybody polices themselves through fear of punishment, ridicule, or disapproval. And people are encouraged to scrutinize and judge themselves at all times to improve and work on themselves and to present a positive and successful self to the world based on the messages they receive about what counts as normal. So this gets into sort of questions of why do we code switch? And maybe sometimes it is a bad thing, because we are being told that we need to be a certain way and we're trying to match that. And it gets into questions of the self. I will go ahead. You have a thought?
I have a thought. It raises a somewhat uncomfortable thought for me, because as you're describing it that way, we're thinking of this in terms of like queer people and maybe Black people and people of other races and marginalized backgrounds self-monitoring themselves. And we saw examples of that. It's at the same time, and those are like, we would, empathize with those feelings and wish for things to be better in those cases. Sounds very similar to what I imagine and have at times heard the argument from people who maybe are ideologically on other sides from us, criticizing like woke culture as being this thing you have to always be on guard to do the right thing and don't ever put a toe wrong or else. And like, from my perspective, they are being like very like, either they are misinformed or like are being willfully willfully sharing things that are not, because like we are not trying to like swoop in and or like horrifically correct them for like doing the wrong thing, within certain parameters. But like I may have to grasp and empathize with the fact that like millions of people might not understand that and might think that like there really is some like grand cultural force that will come down on them for getting it wrong if they don't like put up a like stand strong together to put up like an opposition to this, which is what it seems like they're doing culturally. So like it's giving me an uncomfortable inkling of empathy for people that I hate and I don't like it.
It's so very,
and like,
yeah.
And at the same time, like I'm not like I'm not being like, well, now all of a sudden I'm gonna agree with them and think that everything is like everything they're saying is right and everything I do is wrong. But like if they have come to that understanding through some authentic way, like it's more of an opportunity to hopefully like change that thinking. And also like it just seems to me that like all evidence is that people on our side are nicer about it and are like not coming for them with pitchforks and torches, and yet they still persist in this image of us as if we are. So like I don't have any nice feeling on that count. But I think I can like see a little bit of where they're coming from, and at least that can help us think like, how can we
Yeah.
diffuse that?
It's
way of
almost
thinking?
like the perception that they are being monitored and surveilled, they sort of attach that to a group of people that they don't understand
Yeah.
and say like, this is the part that's doing that, where they don't see maybe the root cause of how society is oppressing them in that way.
Yeah, they put us as the guard in the tower rather
Right.
than understanding that we're all the prisoners
We're-
on the
yeah,
outside.
exactly. That's very interesting. I didn't think about that.
I don't feel any empathy because it's other people within their own group that are leveraging their
Yes.
fear. And
That's true.
The idea that like if you step a toe out of line, the woke mob is
Yeah,
gonna come
it's
to you.
ridiculous.
That's a fiction
Yeah.
that is being leveraged by conservatives and perpetuated by other conservatives to like turn them against us.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they're just too stupid to realize that they're being lied to by other people within their own group.
Agreed on that as well.
Oh, one thing I don't know, I don't want to like take over too much time.
Go ahead.
One thing that when Peter was presenting this to me, so this is a real prison,
Yeah.
and within like the development of criminological theory, this was a thing that existed, and also it's very bad, and people went crazy. And so they had to stop this because the idea of being surveilled at all times, that was very unsettling to the prisoners. So there's like no rehabilitative value in this particular like prison design or in this particular philosophy.
And also like, so Foucault was writing and thinking like, he's like from the 60s. Is that his era? Am I correct in
think
that around
so.
then? Probably.
So this as a rehabilitative and punitive theory is like the 1700s.
Okay,
Right,
but he was using it as a
that
metaphor
way.
in the
Yeah, yeah.
60s. So like my thinking is like, if he thought in the 60s we were all like under the eye of Big Brother to that extent, like how much worse is it now when like
We
it's
actually
almost
are.
like, and like what is that doing to our mental health if like the reality of the actual panopticon prison is it drives us crazy. Is
Yeah,
it
he-
driving us crazy en masse right now?
He was born in 1926 and died in 1984 of HIV/AIDS neurological problems developed from HIV/AIDS.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good.
Yeah, they're trying it again on a larger scale and it's not working out any better, I don't think.
I think too, the idea, so the idea that you are being surveilled, so you have to be internally surveilling, I think is so detrimental to yes, you, but to people's like mental well-being.
Yes.
And so that's why their mental health deteriorated so quickly.
Yes.
Because the idea that they're being watched and they then in turn have to overexert their mental energy, not on their rehabilitation, but on constantly like monitoring their own
Yeah.
behavior, that there's like not enough mental bandwidth for anything else.
Mhm.
And I think the same reason that people struggle today is because when they're trying to like fit into society, you're wasting so much of your precious energy, like analyzing your behaviors and your thoughts, how you dress, how you act, that you're not applying that mental energy to other things that
Yeah.
could bring you joy. You're like exhausting yourself thinking about how others perceive you.
Which is another great argument to like
Yeah.
eat the chicken wings.
Yeah. Wear what you want to wear.
And Judith Butler.
All right, moving on to Judith Butler. Did you have something else?
No, I was just,
Okay.
last week and on July 4th, I dressed up as a dinosaur and walked downtown with a.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just
Amazing.
thinking, wear what you want to wear, so we did. We planned this for about a month and we did it and it was a lot of fun and, but you know, I just laugh at that because it's like. I'm a totally different person when I'm not around, you know, when I'm out there and, not out there, but, when I'm with certain people.
Sure, yeah.
When I'm with this person and we come up with an idea, oh yeah, it's a good idea, and we just do it. And I didn't think at all about what people would think.
Uh-huh.
Not at all. And later I did when I saw the pictures on Facebook, but it's, you know, I don't have a problem being silly like that.
Mhm.
I have a problem being serious.
But you shouldn't have to be serious either if it's not like your authentic self.
Yeah.
And what is serious, right? Like if you're being appropriate to the situation, you're not like, you don't put on a clown nose at a funeral.
But there's the question, like,
Well,
would the
would
guy
that
in that video have said like, no, if you want to wear a clown nose to your funeral, do it. Don't,
I mean,
don't ever
as
code
long as
switch.
it's not, so here's the thing, read the room.
Right. And
Like
that's
if
where I
it,
think
if
I
it is,
land.
if it is appropriate to put a clown nose at a funeral,
Like that
that's
Mary
fine.
Tyler Moore episode.
I don't know that episode, I'm sorry.
That's okay. There's a
But-
clown funeral.
But like, yeah, as long as you're being sensitive to other people's feelings and you're not being like mean to them
Yeah.
with your like display, then who cares?
I think that's definitely where I land on this whole question. But then like I also get pulled back in that question of like, is the social norm that I'm doing built authentically or out of some form of oppression? But so then we get back
Yeah.
to the beginning of the question
yeah.
again. Like the oppression of clowns at funerals.
So not to cut that short, but let's talk about Judith Butler for a minute.
Love it.
So she built on criticisms of early Black feminists and criticized this idea that women as a term is a stable, unified identity. And she argues that gender is performative. It is our expressions and behaviors, and we internalize the available discourse and perform it. We're sort of reflecting society. And she says that all gender is imitative performance. So how do we feel about this theory? This is admittedly, this is a very surface level presentation of this theory. And there's a lot more to it, but just as an idea, how do we feel?
I can tell you who doesn't like it. Ben Shapiro, etc.
Can I feel like I'm talking a lot and I'm sorry if that's the case. So I think this is 100% true, but people don't like to hear it because then they have to realize that they have been doing gender performance that inherently makes them unhappy and they have been suffering needlessly and they didn't have to. So I'd rather attack random strangers rather than realize that I was doing things that actually made me profoundly unhappy and that was unfair and that didn't have to be the case.
Seconded.
So
yeah.
So I think we're on board with Judith Butler.
and
We're on the
also
Butler train.
and so there's like so much, like if you look at historical evidence,
Yeah.
because like there's no
I mean,
like,
obviously, yeah, like French men used to wear powdered wigs and be what
Yeah.
we would think of as feminine
right,
today.
like what is, yeah, exactly, that changes, it evolves with like society. And so what do you say to that? Oh, you don't want to look too closely because then you'll realize that there's a flaw in your logic and
All I know is I can define what a woman is, and yeah, and like you, yeah. So what can we? But it's just not like a one-word dumb shit answer. Like there's nuance to the world.
God forbid
Moms
there's
for liberty.
nuance to the
Yeah.
world.
It's getting us riled up.
All right, so at the end here, I have some more questions because I feel like honestly, this topic, it just opens up so many avenues to like go in. And so we don't need to talk about all of these, but because it is getting past the end a little bit, but I don't mind talking about it a little more if we need to. But here's what I have. So is code switching a bad thing? You know, that's something that we can think about, and we've kind of gone in different directions on, I think. Another thing is if gender is performative, can code switching be reclaimed in a way that words and language have been through history? Thinking about things like how Walt Whitman does, where he says, like, I contain multitudes. And then we sort of get into that theory that we were talking about earlier, like we have different parts of us that all make up who we are. And maybe this is, you know, think parodies of rich white women that RuPaul might do on Drag Race. That's another example of code switching in on Drag Race, you know, putting on that transatlantic accent from the 30s or whatever, and parodying that, and it becomes a parody of Class in Paris is Burning, which is another great documentary about drag, where they're sort of there's parts where they're reflecting what they see in fashion magazines and parodying it, or sort of sending up this class issue that they see, that this wealth gap, this capitalist system that's in place. So that's one thing to think about as well. And then if language changes as we use it. So what is our responsibility when it comes to ensuring we aren't maintaining negative stereotypes or culturally appropriating language? These are all questions that I feel like we need to grapple with, and probably more than this. You know, this is sort of just what I could think of, but does anyone have thoughts on any of these questions or anything
I'll let
else?
someone else talk.
Oh, go ahead.
So the one thing that I'm thinking about with both language and cultural appropriation is that it's problematic because we're using the cultural capital of oppressed groups to like uplift ourselves while simultaneously keeping them down. Like if you're using or adopting African American English while you're still adhering to and maintaining a system of racial oppression, then you're doing a bad thing. If we're looking at the culture and saying this is beautiful and we want to include it, then include it. Don't just use it as a crutch to make yourself seem better and cooler while completely disregarding the origin group and continuing to oppress them. It's the same with like indigenous cultural appropriation. It's so cool and whimsical and beautiful, and yet no one is caring about actual indigenous people and the hardships that they face in the United States. And so then like don't, if you're gonna be tempted to appropriate and then not pay attention to the origin source, then don't do it, because you are doing a disservice to this group.
Yes. I agree.
I don't know what else to say. It's unclear if it's a bad thing. I don't think this has been great. I've been ruminating on this. I don't think I've come up with a definitive conclusion
And,
where.
and we don't have to have an answer right now, you know? So these are just sort of things to ponder. And, you know, while you're living your life, maybe you'll notice it more and think about it and explore what it means for you. Because I think, you know, as we said in the beginning, it's something that everyone does to a degree. And yeah, so you know, this was just more, I think, a way for us to start exploring it in our personal lives too. So
absolutely.
And also the stakes are higher for minority groups like
right.
The African American community and the queer community. And so we should be sensitive to that, the fact that for them this is like very like sometimes life or death. And so yeah, I will be ruminating academically, but also think about how to do something practically.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Peter. That was really meaty. I like that a lot.
I appreciate